Hey, what's up, guys? I'm walking over to my building at work. This is my last day at Microsoft. Check it out. My building is right over there. And yeah, this is my last day. I'm going to drop off all my equipment, my laptops, and kind of everything. And that's it. I'm done. So I just left my software engineering job at Microsoft, and I want to talk about why I did that, the reasonings behind it all, and why you guys should do something similar, especially if you're in a similar situation as me. Before I get to the exact reasons, I want to talk a little bit about kind of how I got started in tech. I graduated in 2018, and during that time, I spent a lot of time doing data structures and algorithms, partly because of school and stuff like that, but also because around that time there was a huge craze of getting into FANG, which is Facebook, Apple, Amazon. I remember at that time there was a lot of people posting interview tips and how to do lead code. And if you guys scroll back kind of further back in my YouTube, you actually see me posting similar videos as well. I'd post how to do different data structures, algorithms, and it was just kind of a craze at the time. I don't even know what to call it. And I really wanted to push myself to see how far I can make it in my career. So I really put a lot of effort into interviewing and practicing their interview styles as well. And so I spent about a year and a half doing that. I was just practicing algorithms. I remember sitting an hour before work, just spending time doing algorithms and solve lead code questions. And I got interviews at Amazon. I bombed it. I got interviews at a bunch of other tech companies, also bombed those. And that was in the first year and a half of me studying, which is crazy because I see people now, they're getting interviews and passing them in within 3 months or something like that. But at least for me, it was a longer journey. So I finally got a recruiter from Microsoft. She emailed me at the beginning of 2020. And during that time, I did all of my interviews. I interviewed with 2 different teams at Microsoft. And I remember coming out of both of those interviews, sweating bullets. I was dying. But what was really nice is that afterwards, I got an email back from the recruiter saying that both teams really liked me and they wanted to talk to me to extend me an offer, which is awesome. I was super excited. And during that time, everything was a lot slower because of COVID. So everything just kind of got slowed down. So all of the responses were slower. I was in agony. I was dying, waiting for a response. We ended up closing an offer with one of the teams. I ended up moving to the Office 365 team, and later that year I moved to Seattle, and I ended up working at Microsoft for about 5 years or so, 5.5 years. But for the first 3 years, I was mainly in Office 365. The last 2 years, I was jumping around to different teams because of reorgs. But the very first 3 years, I really had a lot of passion, really pushed myself to get promoted. I got promoted at that time, but I got to a point where I really started to feel the 9 to 5 grind. I was getting up every day, kind of doing the same thing and working on features that were not really easy to see, the actual impact that you would have on all users, which is really crazy to say because these big tech companies have huge impact internationally. Especially as an employee, you're kind of a cog in the wheel. So you're highly specialized in a certain team where you guys are working on a very specific product or very specific service. So yeah, I started getting burnt out a bit, and I didn't have that passion that I had, especially when I joined. Part of it, I think, is because they really hype up this idea of oh, working at Google, working at Microsoft, and they paint it really nicely where it's oh, everything's perfect. You have ping pong tables everywhere. You can play pool. You do have ping pong tables and stuff, but it's not you're playing those every single day. You actually have to get your work done and everything. I've always wanted to build something for myself. And especially in this career path, you can really take your skills and move them on to build out some kind of product for yourself. I feel that was always kind of the goal, to actually build out some product for myself, or maybe kind of work on my YouTube channel, which is kind of something I've done kind of on the side, and work on more entrepreneurial things, which I feel having a 9 to 5, it's really hard to balance these two together, especially keeping your 9 to 5 and succeeding and doing well, and actually keeping this drive and passion for your other hobbies and stuff like that alive. So I started to feel that my 9 to 5 was kind of draining away from my other passions, and I started to feel that I was just kind of going through the motions at work, kind of just showing up, doing my work and doing things just because I've always done it. I really wanted to break that and change that. And I think one thing that was really crucial to me leaving was that the last 2 years I was reorged into 2 different teams, from my first team to the second, then from my second to my third. And my third team, the last team I was in, it was a newly formed team, which comes with a lot of growing pains, especially in terms of management style and kind of the workings of everything. And I think the management style of that last team really didn't mesh well with me, and I kind of made it really evident to management that people were getting overworked and kind of getting burnt out. I feel there was a culmination of everything, that just the 9 to 5 burnout, the management style, this new team, and kind of my passion for wanting to kind of build something for my own. This was all just a recipe for me actually wanting to leave and taking a big risk. And I would say it's not a really big risk. I feel it was more of a risk for me to stay because I feel I was stagnating and not really making too much progress. In general, if you become complacent at your 9 to 5, or you feel you're just going through the motions, I feel you really need to do something to kind of jumpstart things again, or build that passion again that you have in the very beginning when you actually start that new job or do some kind of new business venture. And that's ultimately why I decided to resign from Microsoft. I'm really excited to get working on my YouTube, build out my reading platform, which is called READINGFLO. If you guys want to check it out, You can check it out in the description box below. I'll leave all the links to my products and stuff like that in my description box. And I'm really excited to see what the next half of my career has in store for me. And yeah, that's kind of where my story ends. And I'm excited to see where this will take us, especially because I want to document all of this on my YouTube. I've always like kind of documented everything on my YouTube. So you guys will definitely see everything in the near future. I'll see you guys in the next one.